Our speaker tonight is Susan Donnelly, and Kathie is going to introduce her further.
Hi, everybody. Welcome tonight. Tonight's program is Thinking Outside the Tree, Developing Your Genealogical Skills and Discovering New Sources. And this is the fourth of our 6 programs as part of our project for a grant with Mass Humanities. And Mass Humanities is funded by the Mass Cultural Council. So we're very thankful to them for this grant, which we wouldn't have been able to do these programs otherwise. And they are part of a larger project to build a digital volunteer program for the Hatfield Historical Society. So even though this program, for instance, is about genealogy and getting more skills and learning how to do that for yourself, we're also hoping that some of you might be willing or interested to help us do genealogy programs at the Hatfield Historical Museum. We've already started some projects from our last 3 programs on transcription, and I think people are going to be very interested in working on those. So tonight's program by Susan. Susan's a professional genealogist. She's in the publications department with the New England Historic Genealogical Society in Boston. You might know them as AmericanAncestors.org. She moved to Hatfield about a year ago from the greater Boston area. Her research interests include colonial America, royal ancestry, westward expansion, and US migration trails. So without further ado, actually, yes, we've got our recording going. And just wanted to say, if any of you were interested in signing up for some of those other projects, some of those other programs, or helping to work on some of those projects, you can go to the events page on our website or the new volunteers page on our website. So Susan, welcome, and we look forward to your program.
Thank you. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully everybody can see that pretty well. So I realize that some of you have been researching family genealogy for a little while, and some of you might have just started or are looking to begin a project. So I've put together the program with that in mind. There's a lot to cover, and I tried to kind of narrow things down a little bit, but we should have a good Q&A session at the end. So a couple of just short lead-ins here. So what is genealogy? So genealogy is the study of individuals, families, family history, and the tracing of lineage. We find this information through research substantiated by records. And then we deliver this information in the form of sketches, charts, reports, etc. So how do we do this? What are the methods of collection and presentation? This course has been designed to help guide you through the process. So tonight, I'll be covering workflow organization, locating records with research tips and advice on breaking brick walls. There are components to each category here that will dovetail with other components in other categories, but I've really tried to design this so that it kind of just, the information flows more easily. You might find, like, when I'm getting to a research plan, like, well, how do I find these records? And I will be getting to that, but I just kind of structured it a little bit differently. So when discussing organizing your workflow, what is it? Why is a workflow important, and how do you put one together? So a genealogy research workflow is your pattern of collecting details through your research. It's then the consolidation of that data, and finally, how that data becomes the information that you plan to deliver. Oops. That's my workflow. 1 second, I just skipped a slide. Okay, sorry about that. So why is a workflow important? When you have a go-to method of organization, the method streamlines the research process. It prevents duplicate research and redundant analysis of records. I find that if I don't keep good notes, I might decide at some point, oh, I need to look through these circuit court records, and it might take me forever to find them. And then I'll look through them and say, oh, I already looked through these. And I just kind of took up all that time when, had I had the proper notes, I wouldn't have done it a second time. And so then all of this should assist with the most accurate income for what you're trying to accomplish. I have a pretty good memory, and as I get older, it's less and less reliable with time. And because I could depend on my memory for so many things for decades, I never developed an alternative workflow on paper, so to speak. And now I'm paying for it late in the game because I'm now in the throes of the process of trial and error with note-taking and finding how my mind works in a completely different way. And it's kind of tough to do now because it was such a long-standing habit, and my memory is going. So how best do you work? Not everyone's method is going to be the same. Think about your go-to ways of keeping notes and whether or not they work. If they work, then keep it. And if not, consider other options and, develop methods to incorporate your regular habits into your research work. Now I'm going to talk more about that. So a convenient way to begin a genealogy project is to start with a research plan. And this will develop your ancestor sketch or the subject that you're researching. I call it a sketch. You can call it an outline if that's helpful. It's really the annotated diagram of biographical data on the subject you're researching. And you should tailor this plan specific to the desired project outcome while, like I said, employing your most reliable note-taking or data collection methods. So a research plan can simply be an outline categorizing what you know, what you don't know, and what you're looking to find out about the subject. And to develop any ancestral sketch, you want to check all the vital record boxes. And this helps, for example, just to discern between people with the same name. If you've been doing genealogy for a while, you might find that a lot, and that can get incredibly confusing. So checking all the vital record boxes, which would be the date of birth, the date of death, if any, the date of marriage, if any, and details about any children, if any. So I just kind of put together an example. So research plan can really just look like this with a couple of bullets, a high-level outline. It's helpful to put the subject name. So I used my father, John Donnelly. What we know is that his date of birth was July 6th, 1938, not his real birth date. His place of birth was Boston, Massachusetts, and his spouse was Jane Sullivan. What we don't know are his date of death, date of marriage, who his children were, and then other details that can help you round out the sketch will be the residence and the person's occupation. But for this project, what we're looking to find out are who are his parents, and it's supposed to be where did they come from, not where did he come from, but where did his parents come from? And so all these components to an ancestral sketch can help you determine who the parents are. If you find an obituary, for example, it might be, robustly biographical, containing parents and marriage dates, etc. So a couple of tips when developing your research plan is to keep it simple, just the facts. And under what you know, keep a short list of how you know this, and I'll show you an example in a second. But if how you know the details comes from a client or word of mouth, you're going to want to verify that, because if a person is coming to you saying, I need to know who my second great grandfather is, but I know he was born on this date, they simply might just not have that correct. So you definitely want to verify that, so that when you are going along to try to find more information, you're on the right track. So with here, you can see underneath the details of what I know, I put details from client. And then under spouse, I just said that it was from the obituary from the Boston Globe that I gleaned from newspapers.com. And if you don't use that repository, we will talk about that going forward also. So. I just want to show you my workflow again. So once you do know what you need to find out, and where do you put it? How do you collect that information? Where do you store it? This kind of dovetails, like I was saying before, with the repository and records part of the program. And I realized it would just really be better to stay on the workflow topic, because we could really go down a rabbit hole if I start talking about repositories at this stage. And so, just want to. So the first method I recommend is keeping a research log. Actually, I want to show you an example. Logs, there are logs that you can, actually I have to escape. There are logs that you can find online. You can find templates online. So can you see the screen right now? No? Yes? Okay, cool. So bring your shared window to the front. You can see this log, right? Okay, sorry. So this is something that you can download from American Ancestors. I think that you just need to register for an account. You don't have to have a membership. And they provide, last I checked, they provide these kind of free downloadables. So you can find templates. You can put in the source information, Norfolk County probate records, call number if you need it. I have my spinning beach ball. That's not a good sign. Sorry. And what's your objective in the Norfolk County probate records? Were you looking for a will?
You only have organizing results for things up for us to see. You don't have anything else.
I think you want to be on the
research log
slide down.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. Thank you. So,
Yep.
I got to just go back.
That's what I raised my hand to say.
Okay. It's hard to see everything. Share screen, research log.
Right.
Okay, cool. How's that? Okay. So
there you go. That's good.
Okay, great. So this is just a basic research log. You can download it and it'll pop right into Adobe, and you can actually just type right into it and save it as you like. So new share. Okay. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. Another way you can keep a research log can be to create your own. I used here Reverend William Williams, your source information. You're looking for a birth date. Where did you find it? I found it on Find a Grave. Add the results and whatever notes to accompany it. He was born in Hatfield. There's a picture of the headstone that can be helpful to know. So you can just make your own if you can't find a template that works for you. Another way is to create a spreadsheet. And it kind of looks like the other one because I did make it in a spreadsheet. But the difference here is that, so I use a Mac, and you can see at the top, there are these tabs. On Excel, the tabs will be at the bottom. On a Mac, they're at the top. But if you were doing a big project, say you were working on all the Hatfield families, you can have tabs for each family with the logs under each tab. So that's a way to kind of consolidate and collect a lot of different family groups. So something to think about there. So the tip here is to just, in the research log, different from the outline, is to keep more information than you think you need. The reason is, and I might say this a few times before the night is over, as you progress and develop your skills and amass your files and family trees, you might not remember things in the future as you did today. Like I said, you know, I confess that I'll go back and I'll think like, where did I get this quote from? Or, you know, how did I come to find this person's occupation? You know, so for your own reference, you know, I just recommend in the research logs, just keep as much notes as, you know, as possible. Another way is genealogy software. So there are a lot of different ones. Ancestry.com, you know, is, you know, all-encompassing, user-friendly, gives you the whole experience. You can research for records and you can keep a tree there. You can keep several trees there if you have an account. The pros to keeping trees in Ancestry are that a lot of your research can be conducted in one place and kept in one place. A very big negative to Ancestry is the misinformation that is represented in family trees that often gets duplicated over and over, and you can't find the source. And you know, you want to be accurate. Very recently, I worked on a project, and one of the ancestors was this woman named Marvelous Austin, and she was attributed as being the daughter from this big family in Washington County, Rhode Island during the 18th century. But I found zero evidence of her even existing outside of a family tree. There was like a genealogy on the Boston Evening Transcript from 1910, but nobody, the person who wrote that inquiry did not say where they had this information, but there's no records, there's no probate, there's no anything. So you really have to be careful when you're collecting data through ancestry trees, that sometimes people just, they don't substantiate the evidence that they come across, or the details that they come across anyway. Roots Magic is another one that I've used. That is something that you purchase and you can just upload into your computer. You can keep, you know, all the details in the trees. There's notes sections. It's very user-friendly. You can add links in it. Ancestral Quest and My Brother's Keeper. Those I haven't used, but they are recommended by my colleagues as good ones to use. And then there's Family Tree Builder at MyHeritage, if that happens to be a site that you use. And then a legacy family tree at that website. You can kind of store things in the cloud on the internet there. So the other way to do it would be, other way to keep good notes is if you have access to Office suites. We use, at American Ancestors, we use Microsoft 365. And that's something that can be on your computer, and then you can also access it in the cloud. If you're sitting at a library somewhere and using the library computer, you can actually log on to your account. And I just kind of took some screenshots of mine. It might look a little messy. I wanted to cover up a couple of things, but you can see on the left-hand side, all of the applications are listed. So the top is Word, then there's Excel. So anytime I've ever used those, all my saved documents are in here. There's also the purple square underneath the cloud is for Microsoft Notes. And that's a great way to collect information. It's called OneNote. So you can, at the top, I have this, the name of a client I worked with, Mary Beth Norton, she's an author. So that's my notebook. And then underneath it, I can create these other tabs, project logs, migration routes. And then within those tabs, I can have more information. So that's a great way to keep everything in one spot, if that's something that happens to work for you. Sometimes this just looks like too much for people, and research logs and spreadsheets are perfectly fine. So and then if you wanted more information on office suites, actually Wikipedia has a page that lists them all out. So when we process this into a PDF, you'll have this and you can just refer to it as needed. You don't have to write down the whole URL at the moment. So keep notes of key genealogical details. The vitals I spoke about. Consider their religion, immigration. If you're interviewing your own relatives, for example, what stories do they remember? The research logs you keep, they don't have to pertain to specific records. You just need to remember to write things down or type it up, as you collect. So once you've collected all the data, the details, the statistical data, what do you do with it? So if you're going to present your research to a family member or a commissioned client, how are you going to present it to them? The presentation aspect can also be part of your workflow. So we do this in a couple of different ways. We do this through charts, different charts like family group sheets. I'm going to show you an example of these as I go. So there's family group sheets, there's fan charts, and drop charts. And this is another template you can download from American Ancestors. There's also other templates online. So this is a family group sheet. You start with the mother and father, and then you can add as many children underneath. And then they, each box has, a place to put the vital statistics. So where they're born, what the birth date is, the father's father. Sometimes I think if you're researching online, you'll see people have posted their own family group sheets that look like this. So this is something that can help you keep your notes. And this is also something that you can furnish to a person that you're working with. It's just a nice structured, clean layout, and you don't want to hand them your research logs because they're probably not going to understand it really if they're not a researcher. You've probably seen these before. These are fan charts. You start in the middle, the center circle there is the descendant, and then the ancestors kind of fan out generationally. And again, you can find templates like this online. And this is some of them are really nice looking, and this is just kind of a nice way to furnish as a gift or somebody you're working with. This is kind of something that some people can wrap their heads around, just to sort of see the generations. And then just a drop chart is something that you could create in a Word document if you wanted. They can be ancestral charts, or they can be descendancy charts. So you can start with somebody way back and bring them to the present, or you can start with somebody present and bring them back. So I just did a quick one here where I started with Prince Harry and went back to his grandfather. So it's just a really simple, if somebody's looking for kinship or what their relationship is to a person, this is just a really easy way to show it to them. And for your own note taking, if it was a relationship that you were looking for, it's just way easier to look at it this way. So other ways that are suitable to present and to keep you organized. There's the register style. There's something called an Onentafel, which we also refer to as an ancestor table, and a narrative report. So a register it starts with the immigrant or as far back as you know or want to go specific to your project. And then it brings every generation forward to the present day. So an example of this is, so maybe I did it this way, bear with me. Just a lot of windows. Okay. So an example of this is what a register looks like. So in the middle here, you see number 35 is David Coolidge. It gives his vital statistics, born at Watertown, 3rd September, died of smallpox. He married Dorothy Stearns. And then underneath are his children. If you were starting fresh, a register would start with number 1. And as you bring the ancestors forward and you bring their children underneath them, the way this is structured, you'll see that some of the children have Roman numerals. And then one of the children at number 8 has another number, which is 40, right? 40 is being carried forward in the genealogy. If there are Roman numerals, it means they stop. That's the last time that this child is going to be represented in this genealogy. So you'd start with 1, and then the children will be 2, 3, and 4. And then in the next generation, you would start with 2, 3, and 4, if you follow me. So as we see, so in number 8, we see James is 40. You advance a couple pages in the genealogy and you see that James here, 40, James Coolidge. You see his vital statistics. Underneath him are his children. They're all Roman numerals, so they don't get carried forward. The genealogy will, whatever this particular genealogy is, it just stops with him. So that is one way to do it. The way I do it usually I'm working with a present day descendant and I'm working backwards. So I usually do an ancestor table or an onentafel. So the onentafel is just the opposite. It starts with the present day descendant and it traces the ancestry back to the immigrant or however far you're going with each generation. And you detail each generation. So this is one that I took from the internet also. So the descendant will begin as number 1. And then generation 2 is actually the generation behind them. It's a little kind of confusing, but the men always get even numbers and the women get odd numbers. So unless you're starting with the descendant. So the first descendant is Jenny Garner, so she's number 1. Then her parents are below her, her parents' parents are below them, and so forth. And this can be presented to a client or a family member as well. And this is the best way for me to keep my notes. This is usually how I'm going to be doing it. And then lastly, a narrative style is just whatever you want to say. Susan Donnelly was born in Massachusetts in the summer of a year she won't disclose. She's a genealogist, however it works. So to recap that, find your own methods that speak to how you work best. Give yourself time to learn, make a research plan, keep a research log, type it up or write it down, keep more than you need. If you can, invest in some software to help keep you organized, find online templates to compile your data or make your own. Present your information to your client or keep the research for yourself in a register, onentafel, or chart. Have patience and be cool with making mistakes because I know that that's how I learn best. So moving on to records and repositories. So where we're going to find records are going to be in repositories. It's a fancy word that just means a place where records are kept. These records can be found online, or they can be in physical locations like libraries. And so we talked about, what genealogy is and, why we need records. They just provide biographical information, and they come in many forms. I want to talk briefly about two types of records. One is original source, and the other is derivative source. An original record is one that is recorded at the time of the event. So a birth or a death is an example of an original record. This happens to just be a picture of JFK's death record. They can contain a lot of different information, and they kind of go by state, really. The details in the records go by state. Some states will have the parents' information, where the parents were born, and some won't. It just really depends on the location. And I'll actually tell you how to figure that out going forward as well. And a derivative source is something that is presented after the event, or it's a cataloging or an index of original records that are just kind of transferred into a different form. They can be genealogies or indexes. If you use Find a Grave, I'm going to talk about that too. That can be a great source, and it can also, you can also run into some trouble with Find a Grave the way you would in Ancestry, like I talked about, with information getting duplicated without being substantiated by a record or a source. So the different types of records. Government vital records, they're usually going to be housed in, like Massachusetts has two different places actually that like before 1920, they're at the State Archives in Dorchester, and after 1920, they're at the Vital Records. And again, this is going to go by state. So in the government vital records, you can find births, marriages, deaths. In the information in the record, like I said, we'll have a name, date, the place of event, sometimes the parents' names, and it's also can be a place where you can find the mother's maiden name. Civil and religious vital records, those would be marriages, baptisms, confirmations, and burials, along with the standard information. Sometimes you get witnesses to the event, like baptismal sponsors, and that can actually lead you to some family members that you might be stuck on, or maiden names that you can't find. Sometimes it'll be the sister of the mother or something like that. Other vital records, like Bible records created by a family. Sometimes families just have these archived books that have births and deaths, and these can be really helpful for places that did not start keeping records until much later. I mean, you'll find that like a lot of the colonies, like Pennsylvania, I don't think had standard compliance until the 20th century for vital records. So to try to find a birth record in Pennsylvania before the 20th century can be really difficult. And I'm also going to talk about how to figure that out going forward too. Census records are a wealth of information, especially after 1850. So the census comes out every 10 years. On Ancestry and FamilySearch right now, you can get every census from 1790, which is the first census, to 1940. 1940 is the most recent available census that the public can view. In April of 2022, the 1950 census will come out, and that's going to tell us a lot more information about our ancestors that are a little closer to us in time. The census records will have the name, age, gender, relationship of household, occupation, place of birth. I also want to show you something. It's hard to share the. I lost my mouse. Oh no. Okay. I'm sorry, I lost my mouse. I don't know what's going on. No.
Oh, got it.
I don't know. Like my cursor is just gone. It's just the weirdest thing.
Is it because your battery died?
No, I have two mice here, and I don't know, they're both fine. It's just really weird. I don't know if it's a Zoom thing, but maybe I'll just have to escape.
You may be able to like arrow down through your slides or enter down through your slides. No? Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to get onto the browser to show an example of the census, and I just can't. Let me just see. Yeah, I can't. I can show you after.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh my God, I'm just stuck. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let me share. Hey, we're in business. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen? It says Isaac Cox.
Yes.
All right, great. Sorry about that. Great. Okay, so an issue with the census records is that these can be a wealth of information, but these are also derivative records. If you unpack this process, so this is the 1870 census. If you unpack this process, a census taker knocks on the door. He doesn't ask for an adult. He doesn't ask for the parent. Whoever answers the door just gives the information and it gets transcribed. The information that the person delivers might be incorrect. And the transcription might, maybe somebody's tired and they haven't had lunch or something and they just write the wrong thing down. So you've probably seen, inconsistent evidence when you're looking at census records if you've looked at them before. For this one, I'm actually doing a project for this person, Isaac Cox. And you can see here that it says his birthplace is Mississippi. So when he was 12 years old, whoever was giving this information to the census taker said that he was born in Mississippi. But in the 1880 census, I'm just going to try to make it bigger here. Can you see that a little better? In the 1880 census, it says that his birthplace is Tennessee, which is actually correct. So this can happen. So you want to just be careful. It can be great information, and you just want to be mindful that there can be mistakes. Other records. Land and property records. So these will be deeds and mortgages generated by the purchase and sale of land. In that record, it can have the name of the wife, names of family members, neighbors sometimes. Probate records. So these are generated after someone has died and their estate gets filed. In a probate file, it will have relationships. the husband and wife, children, in-laws, cousins, witnesses who can also be family members, military records, anyone involved in the armed forces. Those can be draft registrations, World War I and II draft registrations that are on Ancestry. They will have the person's full current address, sometimes their occupation and the address of their occupation. Place of birth, residence, I've already said that. Citizenship. So citizenship can also be a wealth of information, but it can sometimes have derivative information the way the census is. So it's the same thing. You're talking to a person about, when you've arrived, or maybe they're looking at a ship's manifest. Sometimes there are transcription errors, but in those records, it should have the name, the person's nationality, when they arrived, their place of birth. So one thing I want to say about Find a Grave, if you ever use Find a Grave, if you don't know what it is, it's a place that actually just collects, memorials from cemeteries all over the country. And if you're going to cite a Find a Grave memorial or use the information in a Find a Grave memorial, it's really important to make sure that there's a headstone image. Anyone can add anything they want on Find a Grave. So sometimes if you use it regularly, you might see that there are duplicate memorials up there. But if you don't see a headstone, then you can't really rely on the details that are on the listing. So it can be a great source of information. It can lead you, as you can see, like to who the parents were. But you need to be careful. Okay, so knowing what records are available, how do you find them? The online repositories. So you probably know about Ancestry. Ancestry and MyHeritage are pay accounts, whereas the information on FamilySearch is free. You need to have an email address and a password with them, but FamilySearch is free. And they have vital records, census records, some Irish records. And I will say that there's probably one online repository that you're not using, and that's FamilySearch Wiki. FamilySearch Wiki is really cool. It's familysearch.org/wiki, WIKI. They'll show you records by state. You can click on any state here. So I'll click on Massachusetts. It will break down the counties here. So if we want to click on Hampshire County, where we are, this is going to tell you all the available records for Hampshire County and where you can find them. This is a great finding aid. That's what we would call this, a finding aid. And this is a great source. And I also want to tell you that not everything available is going to be on this site. It's going to have a lot of things, but there are also other ways that you can find information that is not contained in here. But this is relatively comprehensive. So you can see this chart in the middle here. It'll tell you, the known beginning dates of major county records. And you can see where birth, marriage, and death are. For Hampshire County, those records began at the time of the town's creation. They kept court records at the county level as far back as 1677. As you can see, land, probate, and onward. There's some cool historical data here. They don't do that for every county or state. But it's really a really comprehensive place to find what you need. And there's also links. So it'll say, so where you have online vital records, you can click on that link, it'll take you right to FamilySearch. So this is excellent. If you think, I can't find, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the probate records for, Hatfield. This is going to tell you if they exist, how far they go back, and where you can find them. This is a great online repository that a lot of people don't use. Cindy's List, you may have seen before. Cindy's List, cindyslist.com. Cindy's List is kind of an old soldier when it comes to genealogy. It goes, she has things organized by state. I've clicked on Massachusetts here. Then the records are organized by category. So you see birth, marriage and death, cemetery, census, etc. The problem with Cindy's List is that there's a lot of broken links. It doesn't get updated, but it's useful because it will tell you some availability that you might be able to find on FamilySearch Wiki. It's really just, sometimes it's just visually what is the easiest repository to look at. How do they organize it for you? Is there another one? This is kind of my favorite that doesn't get used, LDS Genealogy. This is organized by state also. But the cool thing is, I'll click on Massachusetts, is that they also have a page that has record type, can also go by county. It's organized by city. So there's all different ways to get that information on LDS, and it's great. So if you clicked on, I'll just show you real quick. So if we clicked on Hatfield, it's all organized really beautifully, and it'll tell you if the records are online or if you have to go somewhere else to find them. The cemetery records, the census records, church records, city directories. They also, another cool thing, I know I'm scrolling here, but I want you to look at it. Another thing they have is that they will list out the newspapers for that town and where you can find those newspapers. There are some states that just have a laundry list of newspapers. This Hatfield does not, but there are other states that will. Online libraries. It's another great place to find records. It's another great place to find newspapers. Boston Public Library, if you're a resident of Massachusetts, you can get an account and you can sign up online, and they'll give you a number, a library card number that you can enter on their website, and they have a great research area that'll list all the newspapers that you can look at digitally, and then all their affiliate sites as well, all the other libraries that they're connected to. Some historical societies will post up their collections. Downloadable books is one of my favorite places to go. Google Books is a wealth of information that is free. So glad my mouse is back. Whew. So Google Books, I'm just stuck here a little bit. Okay. So I was, you can see this here, right? Where it says Valentine Powers. Okay, cool. So I was working on a project where I had this ancestor Valentine Powers. I just punched his name in. And when I clicked on the link for Google Books, all these options came up. The history of Upshur County, West Virginia. As you can see underneath, it says preview. That means that this book is not available completely to read online, but that I know that this book is here. I can try to find where that book is, and I will show you how to do that also. But then there are others. So the history of the Valley of Virginia, where this says read, You can click right on that and it'll give you the PDF file for the book, and it is completely available. All the images, all the pages have been scanned. Google Books is really one of my favorite, free places to find things. Archive.org is also another place that's just like Google. Worldcat.org. So this is another resource. This is where you can find those books. I actually was not able to use it because I don't have, it's something with my location services on here, but this is what it, oops, that's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is what worldcat.org looks like. And right up at the top, you can punch in that, history of the Valley of Upshur County or something, and it'll tell you all the libraries near you where that book is, and you can go find that book. Another place is Archive Grid. Archive Grid, can you see this right now? This is Archive Grid? No? Okay. Got it.
Physical, you're on the physical repository slide?
Yep. So you can see it now,
Okay,
right?
now you're good. Yep.
Okay, cool. So Archive Grid is a place that houses manuscript collections all over the country. So, maybe you don't know what you're looking for, but you have a name. I was working on a project for this family, the Jettons from Tennessee. I just punched in the name and all these manuscripts come up and they tell me where I can find them. University of North Carolina, Charlotte, I can just ask that librarian if they'll look at that collection for me. And maybe they will. So there's that. I know this is a lot of information. You'll be able to go back and review these things, and hopefully this will be like a good, reference for you. So the tips are, one of the tips is actually to learn the history of the location that you're researching. Where does that person live and what was the history? I mean, if you knew the history of, Springfield, you can see my screen, right? Tips. Okay. If you know the history of Springfield, then it may help you find, the first settlers. What are the parent counties? What are the daughter counties? One of the things I try to remind people is that negative results are still results. So when you're looking at those census records and you see that there's misinformation, the misinformation should tell you something. I had a woman once ask me, I can't find this person, where this person was born, and every census record, it says something different. So what that told me was that no one knew where this person was born. And that's information. Do they not know because he's not around? Do they not know because they're lying about something, because they're trying to hide? Negative results are still results. If you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, that is telling you something also. Another tip is to consider finding your expertise. And your expertise could just be something that you just really like and that you learn to be good at. Start amassing a library. Google Books is a great place, like I said. Find original source material where available. Where original source material is unavailable, it's okay to speculate those details. If you can't find, I think he might have been born, in 1850, but I don't know. You can say things like, according to tradition, or though it's unproven at this time, it is likely. You have a hunch, you just can't substantiate it right now. Real quick, other colonial resources, the Great Migration Directory by Bob Anderson. That's a great place to find the families of first settlers of Hatfield that came from somewhere else, usually like Roxbury or Dorchester. You can find those families in that. That's an excellent directory, and you don't have to pay for the volumes of all the books that he wrote. They're great, but it's cheaper. So I know we're running out of time, so I'll leave you this. History of Springfield, you can download on Google Books. That's a great thing to have on your desktop. The Pioneers of Massachusetts by Charles Henry Pope, another excellent colonial resource. There's so many downloadable town histories on Google Books that you could collect that will help you find your ancestors. The Genealogist's Handbook for New England Research, it's excellent. It's broken down by state, then county. It'll tell you the parent counties, the counties that came from those parent counties. It's excellent. And the 5th edition actually was just completed. Brick walls. The biggest brick wall is this, the maiden names. And I think if we, when we do the questions, maybe you'll tell me about a brick wall and I can try to help you if you get stuck. I know we're running out of time. Where to find maiden names? Headstones. Sometimes women are buried with their parents. Sometimes women are buried with their maiden name on their headstone. Census records are another place. Sometimes a married woman might have, her mother living there, or she lives with a sibling who is unmarried. That's an indication of how you can find a maiden name. Who lives next door? A lot of times, especially in the, the 19th century and back, people are living next to their families. Probate files, a parent leaves land to a child, sometimes puts their daughter's married name on there. If they have no sons, their executor might be the husband of one of their daughters. And land exchanges, same as probate files. Patronymics I was talking about before, naming traditions where a father has the same name as an uncle, names his son the same name, the name's passed in perpetuity through the generations. Keep good notes, like find occupations to differentiate between the people. But that's where your note taking is really going to come in with the patronymics issue. So discern between original and derivative sources, look for original source material when possible, use finding aids, use Google Books. This is a great quote from Emily Dickinson: "To live is so startling, it leaves little time for anything else." That encompasses genealogy to me. Genealogy is never done. If we were going to tell our life story, it would not involve our vital statistics. It would be so much more than that. So just keep going. It's not, your projects aren't going to stop. They can really keep going on and on. So I didn't realize I was going to go over. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully we have time for questions and I can stop sharing. But I lost my mouse. Stop. Here we go. Boom. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a lot of information.
Thank you so much.
I really tried. Thank you.
It was great. Now is it time for questions? If anyone has specific questions for Susan. This was a ton of information and so informative. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to all of the information. Kathie, you had your hand up. Hold on, you're on mute. There we go. I have to unmute. There we go.
Sorry, Susan, I was just going to say there were so many places, even more than the places that I knew about, where you said, you really have to verify this because, find a grave might not be right. I've certainly seen that before and in census records and things. So what records are not suspect? I mean, are there any records that you can really completely rely on?
The original source material, the records that are recorded at the time of the event. So the birth records, the death records, the marriage records, really anything that's official in that regard is the most reliable. That would be the best place. And then otherwise you want to say, it is likely you might need more evidence, but you also might not find that evidence, and you still want to be able to say something. So.
And always be ready to incorporate new evidence. You can have, my great-grandfather's name was changed when he came through Ellis Island. And, being able to be like, oh, this is the correct name because everything lines up.
Exactly.
Bob, you had a question?
Since a lot of families here in Hatfield are relatively new immigrants, turn of the century, a lot of them from Eastern Europe, are there any good sources to make that break backwards? I know ship records, manifests, beyond that, short of going to some small church in some foreign country, how do
Yeah.
you make that leap backwards?
Yeah, that's really hard. I can give this more thought and maybe answer this question through Kathie, but I would really say to use that FamilySearch Wiki and go. That's really that covers all countries. So if you know the country, you can go on that page and see what records are available for that country, whether there's manifests going out. And then hopefully that might lead you down the right path. But that's where I would start if I were doing that, because ship manifests, they're really scattered. And, depending on the port, the records are just different.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gail, go ahead. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Susan, I wanted to know, are there any records for Native Americans? I'm actually doing some research and I can find information written by ancestors, other people, other scholars, but they're all the immigrants. And I'd like to have that other perspective. And I'm wondering where I might find sources like that.
There are early Indian deeds, that's what they call them, that you can find. Where do they have them? That's something, if Kathie doesn't mind, I'd be happy to tell her, and she can communicate to you. But I'd be happy to look at that a little more. But there are deeds that you can look for, deeds that the natives, sold to, like William Pinchon, who settled Springfield. He bought the land from the natives that they called Agawam, and that's all documented. So things like that.
I'm actually wondering about even oral histories. I'm trying to get a sense of perspective. I mean, I think some of the facts are probably accurate, but my concern is when I'm trying to write a story, I'm hearing it from only one perspective.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there are any oral histories that were written down that you might know of.
There's a webinar that we've done at American Ancestors that I think you can find on YouTube that'll give you some sources for that. That's something that we're always working for, just to try to find those underrepresented communities that were really written by people who were not them. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do we have other questions? Anyone else? I see questions going once. All right, I think that looks good. Susan, I love the implication that you might be willing to answer additional questions over email or something if people emailed the Historical Society. That'd be great. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Kathie? Oh.
Yeah, I just have.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So anyway, we just want to thank Susan so much for her presentation. I think this was a huge amount of information. I'm not someone that's done a lot of genealogy work so far, but I hope to in the future. And this is going to be a great resource. As Susan mentioned, she's going to make a PDF of this, and then we will put that up so that it's available on our website. And also, if you saw any of the 3 programs before on transcription by George Vakula, those programs are now also going to be up on our website. Actually, are they there yet, or we still got to get them up there? Anyway, they'll be there soon if they're not there yet. And also just to say, I'm trying to share my screen to show you final screen, but we have 2 more programs in the series. Next week, we're taking a break from this series because we're having our normal November program. And this year it's going to be on Hatfield's Vietnam War veterans from an oral history project. And we'll be recognizing and playing audio from recorded interviews with 11 Vietnam veterans from Hatfield. And that will take place at the Hatfield American Legion next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So for any of you that are local and interested in that, we'd love to see you there. but then we'll pick up this series the week after on the 18th. Deb Blodgett will be giving a program on how to create a research locality guide. Then we skip a week for Thanksgiving, and we come back on December 2nd, I think it is, on that Thursday. And that will be Liz Denny is giving a program on how to research your house. So we have a lot of really interesting programs. These 6 virtual programs have all been made possible by the grant from Mass Humanities. And so just want to say how great it is to have grants and funders like this, because without programs like this, we wouldn't be able to do a project like this because we just don't have the resources. So, wrapping it up, I will stop the share. And any of you that think you might be interested in doing some volunteer work with the Historical Society, if you have an interest, we probably won't put up kind of a survey for collecting those names until after these 3 programs, since they're all kind of related to genealogy, have taken place. So that'll be at the beginning of December. But we're very interested in having you if you're interested in joining us. So thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Susan. It was really great program.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for
All right.
coming.
And everybody feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like to say goodbye. And
Think about
otherwise we'll all just fade away.
I thank you.
it. Great to see you all. Thanks so much.
Great
Bye.
information.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ruth.
Quick question, will the program that's at the Legion next week, will that be broadcast virtually as well, so that those of us who can't get there can see the program?
Ruth, it's
That was a
not
question.
it's not a Zoom program, but it is going to be filmed by John Novak. And so once he has that edited, it will be able to be watched on Channel 15. And also we'll presumably get a copy of it so that we can put it up on our YouTube channel. So yes,
Okay.
you will be able to see it afterwards.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, thanks everyone so much for coming.